Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your hosts, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome to Hope After Addiction. We are so excited you have joined us today. Things look a little different in the studio today. My good friend Chelsea's not with us, but we do have my other good friend Barb. I'm so excited you're here. So, as you all know, if you've listened to our testimonies, Chelsea and I, we offer the perspective where our husbands went through addiction and our journey to just in that. But Barb, you offer a unique perspective as you had a child that walked through addiction. So Barb, thank you so much for being here. It's exciting just to have you in the studio. Known you for a lot of years, and I'm just super excited that you are here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here at this desk.
Okay, well, I am married
Okay.
to a pastor, and we've been pastors for years, since probably the late 80s. But my husband is a pastor at S2L right now, and one of the executives. So, and then I have two sons we have raised, and one is 41 years old, and the other is 39. And our 41-year-old gave us some trouble
Okay.
for years.
Some trouble.
Some
you
trouble.
say.
And
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
what's brought us down this path. And
Yeah.
what do parents do? And sometimes even the church doesn't know how to help you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. And this is the thing when we're talking, Chelsea and I are talking, bantering back and forth. Like I said, we have that commonality of our husbands have walked through the addiction. And then when we're hearing all this feedback from our podcasts and stuff, it's interesting because we do have a lot of parents that listen to the podcast. And I know that they get a lot of stuff out of it. We talk about trust. We talk about enabling. These are things that the parents need to know and how to maybe kind of maneuver those topics. But just to have somebody here in the studio, just talking about it from a parent's perspective. How did you handle this? How did you do this? I'm super grateful. And I know that there's going to be a lot of listeners that are just eager just to kind of hear your perspective. I know it's not always easy to talk about some of these questions that I'm going to ask you, but I do appreciate you being vulnerable and just talking to us about it.
And I am vulnerable.
Yes, and I love that about you. You're so sweet. Okay, so when you're talking about your journey with your son, what was the hardest part about walking through that addiction with him? What was the hardest part?
How do you pick one?
Yeah.
How do you choose one hardest part? Coming from a parent's perspective, when you're a mother, you know, it's one thing to you grew up and you met this one in high school or college and married them, but when you're a mother and you carried that child in the womb and birthed them, took care of every need, and then this comes along and happens. I don't know that it's different, but the pain is different. I think maybe different or deeper. But I think some of the hardest part was fear. Fear of them dying before they received deliverance. The trust probably wasn't as hard. I mean, first of all, you raised the kids, so listen, you're not fooling me with much.
Yeah.
You
can just
know,
kinda tell by
you
your
can
face.
choose to be blind and be fooled, or you can reach down deep and discern the situation with your child. So I don't know if we had good discernment with prayer or I don't know.
Yeah.
But one of the things that your podcast is named this, so, and I
Yeah.
just thought
Hope.
about this
Yeah.
actually, just came to me, but there was a long period of time that you really battle with, you do lose hope. You don't even know. I didn't even have a vision of what it could look like on the other side. You know, our journey went on for 12 years.
Wow.
So it's hard to look on the other side and envision what it's going to look like when our family is whole again. So, but, you want to trust God for that. And if you lose hope, it's hard to keep going. So you might fall into a depression or something. I did not, because I already kicked that before this happened. God knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Thank you for being vulnerable, and the hurt I can feel just sitting here. I was actually fumbling around for my tissue. I can't find my tissue. It's fine though. But just how vulnerable, because I do have kids. I mean, they're a lot younger, but I can't imagine the difference in that would be walking with that with Adam, and he's an adult, he's choosing this and stuff, but from a parent's perspective, I don't know, it just would be so different. And so I thank you for that, because I know some of these mamas listening know exactly that hurt and that feeling that you're feeling, and you felt in that journey. So,
and I'm not an advocate for divorce whatsoever, but but does that go through your mind when you're married? If it's a spouse or a partner, or it's your brother or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it's your child,
when it's your child,
you're never gonna give up. So I know he said one time, even when he was a teenager and started acting up and staying out too late, and he had a lot of friends that said after, months and a year, and he said, my mother's always up when I get home. I'm always ready to jerk a knot at him. If I had to stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm always
that's
up.
your baby.
I'm going to be up till you hit the door. And his friends said, oh, don't worry. She'll give up and go to bed one night. He said, she'll never give up.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Not my mom. She'll never give up.
Oh, and you won't, and that's so beautiful. I thank you for that. So when you're looking back at your journey with your son and walking through addiction, what did tough love look like? Because at some point they can be acting a fool for so long in front of you. So what did that tough love look like in your life with him to get him help?
I don't even know how you choose one or two things or instances.
So,
in 12 years, I'm going to tell you from the get-go.
Okay.
He would say, how do you know these things? To me. Well, one thing was, one end of my house, I had a beauty shop, and it had a window unit in it, to heat and cool it on that end, because it used to be the garage. So you could hear through that a lot easier, brick walls everywhere else and windows, but you could, and they'd be out in the driveway and I could hear, if you think I wasn't snooping around, they weren't going to get by with anything. And I said, if it's in my house or on my property, I'm looking for it. So if you bring it on the house or the property, you put it in your room, in your drawer, it's mine. Don't even bring it. Don't even bring it here. So I'm going to search it. No, it's not your private property. You live here.
Yeah. They try to use that excuse. This is my
everything. I've heard it all. So, but I would hear things even through that, and he'd say, how do you know? You have eyes in the back of your head. How'd you know that we were going to do this or that? Well, I have my ways, but you have to. You have to become an investigator and and not apologize for it.
Yeah.
So, but even when they were in high school, and this is boys, listen, the first time he stole a car, it was his car. We just happened to buy it before he was 16 because a good deal came along. So it was going to be his car. It's out on the driveway. But the first time he drove it illegally, where do you think he went? McDonald's. He got food for all the guys over at the baseball field, So it's a boy thing, so it's their food. So here's what I'm getting to. The first time I wasn't trusting him, what he's doing with his money, and he's buying things, you know, weed, whatever. And so I cut off his lunch money.
Okay.
So, because he's taking that little bit of lunch money, he's not eating lunch. Oh, they're starving when they get home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But, I mean, you say, oh, I can't cut his lunch. You can cut his lunch off if he's going to take it and buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I just have to think of that off the cuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I cut his lunch money off. He'd say, I'm hungry during that pack sandwich.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you any money because I know what he's doing with it. So that was maybe just the first little trickle.
When he was younger, those were some easy ways to, this is not your property, this is mine.
Yeah. They knew if it came in the house, their drawers,
their
jackets, their whatever, because they use that.
There's some stuff to look at as they're younger to, be looking out for.
And just don't let yourself be fooled. Listen, it's easier to say, "Oh, not my baby," and take up for him, and and that may soothe things better. Or, okay, he's doing this, but if I do this, maybe he'll. It's the enemy.
Yeah,
and you're gonna have to take the bull by the horns.
So, when you say take the bull by the horns, as he got older, was some of that tough love harder? Mm-hmm. So what did that look like?
It only got harder and harder. Mm-hmm. I found myself during that time, I had an operation on my foot. Mm-hmm. And so I had free time from my career. And so during that time, I spent time on my knees on the floor, praying. In life, you have ebb and flow with God. Sometimes you're forced into more. Mm-hmm. And what would you do and give for your children, Mm-hmm. So we were really chasing after God hard during that time. I read some books, intercessory prayer, possessing the gates of the enemy. I mean, I was getting radical because, listen, you're fighting a radical Satan that's coming to kill, steal, and destroy.
He does,
your family and your child. And I'm not going to give it up. I'm not going to just hand them to you. Crying. So a lot of prayer. And every time he came around, I had to remove everything a mom wants to do. A mom, it's very rarely I'd even cry in front of him. I said, God, don't let me cry in front of him and show weakness. Well, the other thing with that is it's not just weakness. Listen, boys love their mothers. Yeah. And my crying and being upset would break him a little bit. But just that little pressure off the relief off the valve, that's not enough. That was not enough to save him from what he's doing. My results, my crying, my temper, my begging, my any of that wasn't going to get the big result I wanted. It had to be God's size. So I had to give it to God. Everything was through prayer. Every time he came over, my husband and I, we talked, and if I was there alone or if I wasn't, and we just had to ask God, everything that comes out of my mouth, let it be you, God, not me, because I had to take my emotions and feelings out of it to get the bigger end result I wanted. So, but I can remember one time, it was pretty bad. He was out there. We didn't know for, long time where he was or anything.
It's scary.
In prayer, God would reveal things to me. I mean, I knew when he was living in his car, and I knew when it was thunderstorming and lightning. I knew certain things, because when you're really in that much prayer, God leads you. It's like intercessory prayer. If anybody has ever been led to pray for another country or another situation, listen, he does that.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't think he's going to do it with your child, you're mistaken. He will. So I knew certain things to pray for, but there was one night. I've never had a vision in my life, and I've never had one since.
Oh, wow.
But this one time, we were in a church service about an hour from where we live. And it was a larger church, and, they're singing the songs before church starts. And all of a sudden, this super heaviness falls on me. I mean, it was thick, and it was heavy, and it settles in. And I thought, oh, my goodness. And I looked at the white ceilings, and it had those acoustic tiles,
Oh, no,
white acoustic tiles.
Yeah.
And I looked at the ceiling, and I said, what is it, God? What is it? And when I said that, I saw a casket, and it flashed to an emergency room sign. And the emergency room sign was lit up and on this brick. And 3 times, casket, emergency room, casket. So I immediately knew it was him, and he was in trouble.
Oh, my goodness.
Like never before. And so here I am in this church service, and because my husband's a pastor, he's way up front, sitting up front. And I thought, what am I going to do? I have to pray. I got to pray right now. It's going on right now. And so about that time, we have another pastor friend, and he's also a musician. And he stood up and he started testifying. And he started testifying about musical notes and about the minor notes and how they're more somber. And anyway, he was saying just a few words about that, and just within 60 seconds he called for everyone to come up front and pray. So I got up front, I got my husband, and I said, something's going on right now. This is what's going on. And we're an hour from home, and it isn't like we would know where to find him anyway.
Wow.
So
It's terrifying.
it is terrifying. And so I got on my face and I prayed in that church on my knees. And I said, God, number one, please protect him. Please protect him and save his life.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend later, she had some sons, and that were wayward, and she said she used to pray, just save them from theirself. And I started praying that years later, just save them from theirself. I mean, they're just, they're a wreck. But also, the second thing I prayed is just give me strength to even stay here. I mean, I have to go back to my seat in a whole entire 2-hour church service and act like nothing's wrong. What am I going to do?
Oh.
How am I going to pull it together and sit here after what I just saw? So God, you got to help me. And he did. Wow. And he did help me. But
Wow.
we got in the car. Ron said, do you want to stay? And I said, yes. And I can, because God's given me the strength and the comfort during that time. And so we got home, we drove home. So now it's 3 some hours later. And we weren't home. We were just starting to, take our jewelry and shoes off and get undressed, and the phone rings. And this is before cell phones.
Oh.
And can you imagine that?
I can. I was in high school.
And so So the phone rings, and it's actually the police.
Yeah.
And our son's in the emergency room.
Wow.
And he wants to know, I guess part of the protocol is, they call to see if it's a domestic or anything's going on at home. And,
Okay.
And so he's asking this, and we're like, well, no. And so anyway, he says, okay, fine. And so we jump in the car and we go up to the emergency room, and the emergency room sign is exactly what I saw.
Wow.
It looked the same way. Well, I didn't know what our sign looked like.
Wow.
I hadn't paid any attention. But anyway, we get up there and he's gone. I mean, he left. They didn't want him to check out.
Okay.
But he did. He checked out. And so he's gone into the night. We don't even know, right? So once again, God has to give you the strength and the grace to lay your head down at night and be able to rest. And you don't even know what's happened. But tough love. With that, he comes the next day, and I believe Ronald was at work. And he comes the next day, and he is beat to a pulp. And he has his arm in a sling, and cuts on him because he's been beaten so bad. I guess
Oh my goodness.
And but sitting at my kitchen table, and this is where you just have to pray, God, I need discernment. I need to know. And sitting at my kitchen table, and of course, he wants to come home and he wants his wounds licked. Okay, so all right, even that is enabling them some, let's, make them feel a little better during this. And he wasn't there. I mean, he was thankful he lived, but he was just waking up. I mean, he was in and out of consciousness so much, and they meant to kill him. And so, but he knew that God provided him a moment to slide out of that apartment while they were looking for a gun. And he doesn't know why they couldn't find the gun. Well, we do. We know why they didn't get their hands on it quick enough to get him, but he wasn't at his bottom, you know?
Wow.
No, nope, not even that was it. And so I knew that, just
hard.
talking to him, I knew that. You want it to be. You think, how much lower can it go? Oh, this is it. And I just had to send him out. We'd already kicked him out. You're not staying at my house.
I mean, and that's the tough love as an adult. I know Adam's parents had to do the same thing,
So, no matter how bad it is, you just can't let your emotions and your motherly love take over. It has to be discernment with God and what's going to be best. Now, it wasn't too much longer, maybe 2 months or so. And my husband could speak to that better, but God had shown him how our son would come home. And he would be repentant. And he showed him that he would come home crawling on his knees and repentant to pray. And so as we stayed the course, seems like a couple months more passed after
that incident.
After that. And I was working. I was a hairdresser at the time. And somebody canceled, which didn't happen very often. So I had this little lull in my day, and somebody canceled. And the door opened, and nobody comes unless they have an appointment. So, because I was in private in my home. And so the door opened, and I turned around, and it was my son, Patrick. And he crawled up the stairs through the kitchen to the living room, crying out to God on the couch, on the floor, kneeling at the couch. That's how he came home.
In repentance.
Yeah, wow. Just as God said.
Just as God had said. Wow.
And he was really good for a long time,
Yeah.
Um,
That's beautiful.
was serving in the church and whatnot.
Yeah.
He was great for a long time, and then it came around in
Yeah.
the professional world again.
Okay.
And then we had long run. But
How is he
Yeah.
doing today?
he is great.
Good.
He's terrific today. Yes.
That's so good.
He has children
Oh,
and a
that's
wife,
beautiful.
and they're adopting one.
Are you kidding? That's so sweet.
So,
Wow.
so he's been free for 7.5, 8 years now.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
God has done some incredible things in your family and your son's life, and that was amazing to hear. And I know that if you're listening, a lot of the moms out there can just, like I said earlier, can just feel the desperation in your voice, feel the hurt, just wanting to save your baby so much. And I'm just really thankful that you were you were just able to share that. I know it's not easy.
No.
I know you don't get to talk about it a whole lot. I thank you for sharing it with us, because I know that there's a mom out there who needs the encouragement that it can get bad.
Mm-hmm.
It can get bad down to death. It can get bad down to you feeling like you're turning your back on your son or your daughter. But I love the image. I know that I have had several of those as well, of you just on your knees. And I've talked about this in another podcast of surrender, but I remember being on my knees in total surrender to the Lord. And I know you did that several times in your journey. So I think we're going to wrap up, because I just think that was just so perfect. And seeing that he's doing well is so encouraging, and his family's doing well. Barb, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I hope you found some encouragement in her story. If you have any questions for us, we'd love to answer those for you. We have our social medias on Instagram and Facebook. Find us at Hope After Addiction. Feel free to direct message us. If there's a question for Barb, we'll make sure to get in touch with her, and know she'd be glad to answer any question from a mom's perspective. If you're wondering, how did you get through this? How did you do this? I know she'd be glad to answer that. We'll relay those messages to her. You can also email us at hopeafteraddiction@gmail.com. We are going to have Ron, this Barb's husband, on as well, to give a dad's perspective. And he also, like Barb said, he works with us too else. So stay tuned for that. But we thank you again, Barb, for sharing your journey with us, sharing your hope journey with us. So thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.